going to get into this book. This book is called Judah's Scepter and Joseph's Birthright, an analysis of the prophecies of Scripture in regard to the royal family of Judah and the many nations of Israel by Reverend J.H. Allen. This is from 1917. Shout out to A New Breed who put me onto this book about, like 4 or 5 years ago. And we've been holding this book. Well, I've been holding it here and just waiting for the right moment where we all were at a level we can understand what we're reading. We've learned so much the last couple of years, and we're still learning. Now, here are the contents of this book. First part, literally like telling you biblical history or genealogy and stories. And then the second part is when it, talks about where they went. In regards to the topic that we're going to discuss today, the lineage of Judah and other Israelites in Europe. It says here in part 2, chapter 5, a royal remnant that escapes. And remember, this is regarding after Nebuchadnezzar had invaded Jerusalem, and the king of Judah, Zedekiah, and killed all his male heirs and all of the Judah nobles. So Jeremiah, with some of the survivors and the princesses or the king's daughters, escaped. As we're going to read here, this Nebuchadnezzar allowed that to happen. So it says here, when Nebuzaradan, or Nebuchadnezzar, this is how it's called here, Nebuzaradan, Dan, the captain of the Chaldean guard, remember who the Chaldeans are, gave Jeremiah privilege to go where he pleased and provided him with all that was needful for the journey. The record further declares, then went Jeremiah unto Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, to Mizpah, and dwelt with him among the people that were left in the land. The next verse of the same chapter states that people who were still in the land were the poor of the land, of them that were not carried away captive to Babylon. This Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, was the man whom the king of Babylon had made governor of what little there was left in Judea. For he had taken the masses of the people into captivity to Babylon, and made servants of them. It seems that since the capital city of Judea was now destroyed, Gedaliah had been compelled to set up a provincial government in some other city, and had chosen Mizpah. But the little province did not prosper long, for the king of Ammon entered into a plot with Ishmael, the son of Netaniah, to assassinate its new governor. Johanan, the son of Kareah, discovered this plot and told Gedaliah. However, it was only a short time until the plot was successfully carried out, for Ishmael and 9 of his confederates slew not only the governor, but all the Chaldeans, all the men of war, and all the Jews that were with him. Then Ishmael carried away captive all the residue of the people that were in Mizpah, even the king's daughters, even the king's daughters, whom Nebuzaradan, or Nebuchadnezzar, the captain of the guard, had committed to Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, the son of Netaniah, carried them away captive and departed to go over to the Ammonites. When Johanan and other captains of the fighting forces heard what Ishmael had done, they gathered themselves together, started in pursuit, and overtook him at Gibeon. All right, so the story continues. They eventually make it into Egypt. So it says here, we have in this company which has come down into Egypt from Judea, the king's daughters. Since the plural form of speech is used, there are at least 2 of them. History says there were 3. These are the royal seed of the house of David. Okay, this is from the line of Perez. Remember that David comes out of, that Zedekiah was part of, that his daughters, right, the surviving female Judah descendants or heirs, again, they are the royal seed of the house of David, who are fleeing from the slayers of their father Zedekiah, the last king of the house of Judah, and the slayers of their brothers, the sons of Zedekiah and princes of Judah, all their brothers, all the male heirs. In company with these princesses is Jeremiah, their grandfather, whom also Allah has chosen to do the work of building and planting. Okay, Jeremiah again assigned, just like we got in part 1. In the princesses, the prophet has royal material with which to build and plant. In company with Jeremiah and his royal charge, we have Baruch, his faithful scribe, whom experts genealogists prove to have been uncle to the royal seed. All right, uncle. Note the expression that remnant. Example, Jeremiah's for it is he who must build and plant the royal seed. Understand also that Jeremiah and his little remnant were well acquainted with Egypt, and since it was well known to them, it could not have been their final destination. Hence, this escaping royal remnant must journey back to Judea and then with her into an unknown land. Why? For out of Jerusalem shall go forth a remnant, and they that escape out of Mount Sion, on which were the royal dwellings. The seal of the Lord of hosts will do this, and the remnant that is escaped of the house of Judah, royal line, shall again take root downward and bear fruit upward. And that's the verse right there. Hear it, oh hear it, ye men of earth, hear it, shall again take root downward, be planted, and bear fruit upward. Be builded. Where? God should tell us. We're in His Word, and He does. And we're in chapter 6 now. It says here, the prince of the scarlet thread. All right, remember what that means, the scarlet thread. Remember Zerah. Judah had two sons. We got this in part 1. One of them was Zerah, the other one was Perez. He was having these twins with Tamar, and Zerah pulled out his hand first. That means he was going to be the inheritor of the royal line. Since he was coming out first, they put a scarlet thread around his hand. But then Perez came out first, his brother. He breached out, and so got the royal descendancy. And so Perez is where David comes out of, and Zedekiah, who got killed. So now these females are what's left. This is the remnant from that line. So again, there's another line, the line of Zerah, that came out second. And this is what they're going to talk about here. It says, while we leave our little royal remnant to make their escape, let us look about and now into the fields of revelation and history to see if we can find some royal prince to whom shall be wedded one of these princesses who are fleeing into that unknown land. Man, this reminds me of like those movies, you know, like Lord of the Rings, Narnia, you know, all these medieval royal kings and queens. This is where they get all those stories from. They're looking for this prince to wed the princesses of Judah, of the line of David, where Hawa has promised that those who compose this remnant shall again take root and grow. While we are making this search, it will be well to remember that Hawa gave the kingdom over Israel to David forever, again to David, and that Israel, okay, a family, a people, a nation, not everybody, is not the name of the Jewish nation, but that it is the name of the 10-tribed kingdom, which had been driven into an unknown land. All right, they're talking about the 10 tribes were separated, you know, between Judah and Benjamin, which became, you know, the kingdom of Judah. And they had gone to an unknown land, right? About 139 years prior to the flight of this remnant. So 139 years before Zedekiah got killed, there was another, you know, other tribes of Israel had already moved on to other parts of the earth. This is what we've gone over in part 1 and many other videos before. Let us also remember that the scepter, with all that belongs to it, was promised distinctively to the Judo-Davidic family, and not to the kingdom which bore the name of Judah, a name which, together with its corrupted form, Jews, is the biblical historic name of the Jewish nation. So what he's trying to say, the word Jew was only applied to Jude or Judeans. It wasn't all the Israelites, just the ones that were from the tribe of Judah. So saying Jew is like a misnomer, you know, especially when you're talking about other tribes of Israel other than Judah. Is it possible that this little royal remnant shall have gone to that same unknown land to which they of the 10 tribes had previously gone? All right, so he's saying, could this, you know, remnants, you know, Jeremiah and these king's daughters, could they have gone and met up with their brethren, the other tribes, and wherever they had gone, this unknown land? Was it among that people that this remnant was planted, and over whom the preserved scepter held its sway? Let us examine the scriptural evidence. Ezekiel is believed to have lived contemporaneously with Jeremiah. By taking the testimony of chronology together with the concurrence of many historic events, all may know that this is true. Jeremiah states historic events and utters prophecies which relate chiefly to Judah, but gives only a little of that which pertains to Israel, while Ezekiel does the reverse of this, saying much that concerns Israel and but little that pertains to Judah. Still, what he does say concerning the destroyed commonwealth of Judah, the plucked up scepter and the overturned throne of that royal family whose history we are studying, does most undoubtedly furnish evidence which connects the remnant seed and their monarchical belongings with the exiled house of Israel, which has taken root, and whose people are gathered in strength in a country, the location and geographical character of which are described by the prophets, and which, at a time prior to the prophecies, was an unknown and uninhabited wilderness. We have no disposition to make an attempt to give words a meaning which they will not bear, nor to attach any signification to them which the context does not clearly indicate. But these words do most certainly give us to understand that there is a person, a male heir of the royal line, who is to be the immediate successor of Zedekiah to the Davidic throne. Also, these words teach that the crown is to be taken from off the head of Zedekiah, upon whom it rested at the time when this prophecy was given, and placed upon the head of this person whom the scriptures designate as him that is low. These words further teach that when the royal diadem, the emblem of kingly power and exaltation, is taken from the one and placed upon the head of that other person, that then the one who was previously high is abased and brought low, but that the one who hitherto was low and then exalted and made high. This is essentially so, because the two men shall have then exchanged places. Furthermore, the expression, "this shall not be the same," taken together with the prophecy concerning the overturns, leads us to expect a change of dynasty, at least on the side of the male line, and also a change in the territorial or geographical situation. Again, a change in the male line. This is still more apparent when we note that there are to be 3 overturns, and that after the 3rd overturn shall have been accomplished, there are to be no more until another certain person comes. Also, after the diadem has been removed from the head of the prince who wore it at the time of the first overturn and placed upon the head of him that is low, it is to be noted that then either this man, who is the person understood as the antecedent of the personal pronoun him, or his lineage, is to be dethroned by the Hawa in favor of that other person who is designated as he whose right it is, to whom it shall then be given. The next question for us to settle is, who is this legally possible person that is to be the successor of Zedekiah, who is spoken of as him that is low? For he is spoken of as low only in the sense of non-ruling. By consulting the 38th chapter of Genesis, we will find a record of the conception and birth of twin boys, whose conception and birth were both accompanied by such extraordinary circumstances that the question of their parentage is forever settled. For Tamar, the mother did willingly stood in order that she might conquer Judah, the father, and compel him to do justice by her. The never to be forgotten manner in which Judah was forced to acknowledge that those children were his offspring. Right? Remember what happened. Tamar, made him think she was a harlot and made him because he had promised his 3rd son and he never did it. So she made him get her pregnant. And that's what they're talking about right here. The never to be forgotten manner in which Judah was forced to acknowledge that those children were his offspring and that their mother was more righteous than he, does most certainly place the fact of their royal lineage beyond the possibility of cavil. When the mother was in travail and after the midwife had been summoned, there was the presentation of a hand. Then for some reason, either human or divine, the midwife knew that twins were in the womb. So in order that she might know and be able to testify which was born first, she fastened a scarlet thread on the outreached hand. All right, so this is Sarah. Sarah pulled out his hand first, so she put a scarlet thread to signify this was the one that had come out first. Since Judas was the royal family in Israel and the law of primogeniture prevailed among them, it was essential that this distinction should be made so that at the proper time the firstborn or eldest son might ascend the throne. After the scarlet thread had been made secure on the little hand, it was drawn back, and the brother was born first. Uh-oh, you see what happened? That was Perez. Upon seeing this, the midwife exclaimed, "How hast thou broken forth? How did you do that?" Then seemingly she was filled with the spirit of prophecy and said, "This breach be upon thee." And because of this prophetic utterance, he was given the name of Perez. Example, a breach, all right? Perez. That's where David comes from. Afterwards, his brother, who had the scarlet thread upon his hand, was born, and his name was called Zerah, the seed, the seed. And that's very deep because it does become the seed. The very fact that Perez was really born first would exalt him, and it eventually did exalt his heirs to the throne of Israel, for King David was a son of Judah through the line of Perez, okay? Through Perez, but it was supposed to be Zerah first, but Perez came out first. You guys get it? But just so surely as this son of Judah and father of David, who was the first one of the line to sit upon that throne, was given the name of Perez, just so surely must we expect, with that little hand of the scarlet thread waving prophetically before them, that a breach should occur somewhere along that family line. That breach did occur. We are now considering its history and are well into its transition period, which began when Hawa sanctified Jeremiah, sent him into the world, and gave him his commission to pull down and pluck up the exalted Perez line, and afterward to build and plant anew the scepter, throne, and kingdom. While at about the same time, the word of Hawa came to Ezekiel and moved him to predict the removal of the crown from the head of one who is high, a proceeding which not only involves the transfer of the royal diadem to another head, but also an overturning. And when both the transfer and the overturning shall have been accomplished, then the one who was low will have been exalted, and the exalted one will have been brought low. The immediate posterity of this prince of the scarlet thread is given as follows, okay? The prince, male line, from Zerah, scarlet thread. And the sons of Zerah, Simri, and Ethan, Heman, we get the Tyrians we read in the last video, right? Calco, or Chalco, we get a line in Ireland where Eocoid, Heremon eventually comes out of. And we got Dara, or Darda, where we get the Dardanians, or Dardanos, the founder of the royal line of Troy. 5 of them in all. This is the verse right here. Thus direct posterity of Zerah was 5, while that of Perez was only 2. Zerah had more kids, more males to, spread the seed. For the reason that David sprang out of Judah through the line of Perez, the unbroken genealogy of that family is given in the sacred records, but the genealogy of the Zerah family is given only intermittently, okay? That's not really known. What happened to the line of Zerah and their descendants? Where are they? One thing is made quite clear in the Bible concerning the sons of Zerah, and that is that they were famous for their intelligence and wisdom. For it was only the great God-given wisdom of Solomon which is declared to have risen above theirs, as is seen by the following. And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding, and Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the East, for he was wiser than all men, than Ethan, the Ezrahite, and Heman, and Calco, and Dara. All right? Again, those are Sarah's sons. So he's saying they were comparing Solomon basically to Sarah's sons. They were wise kids. They were wise people. Furthermore, we find that 2 of them, Ethan and Heman, were also noted singers. Singers, as we find by consulting the 15th chapter of 1 Kings and the 19th verse, by noting the titles of the 88th and 89th Psalms. We also see that one of them was composed by Heman, the Ezrahite, and that the other was the song of Ethan, the Ezrahite. It is not at all unlikely and would be but natural that the Simri, who overthrew Baasha, the 3rd king of Israel, not Judah, belonged to the posterity of Simri, the firstborn son of Zerah. All right, it's a Judah, all Judah, son of Judah and twin brother of Perez. For as we have shown, the seed of Jacob were at that time divided into 2 kingdoms, with the posterity of Perez on the throne ruling over the kingdom of Judah. How natural it would be for the then living members of that family to think and to say, this is the long foretold breach for which we have been taught to look. This is the time to assert our royal prerogatives, take the throne and rule over this, the house of Israel. All right, we move on to chapter 7 real quick. The prince of the scarlet thread and the royal remnant united. The 2 lines united. All right, so basically we got the story, they're about to meet up. The 2 lines, where does it all happen? It appears to happen in Ireland.
just like we left off in part 1. It is well known fact that the history of no country on the face of the earth has so puzzled historians as that of Ireland. There is both a sacred and secular reason for this. The secular reason is that Ireland steps into the arena of history with a monarchical kingdom running in full blast, and men do not know how it got there. The sacred reason is because Hawa has issued a mandate saying, "Keep silence before me, O islands, and let the people renew their strength." Keep this silent until they can build up again. We have read many authors on the subject of the Hebrews in Ireland who claim to have searched carefully and critically through all available chronicles, records, and histories, and they all agree that a perusal of these various authorities is not only heavy reading, but that they are very obtuse and that they are actually confusing, bewildering, and tormenting to all who do not take the word of Hawa as an ally in the work of unraveling their mysteries. You gotta use scripture to help you understand what you're reading in these ancient annals of Ireland and Wales and Scotland. For all of these authorities do agree and state in the following facts. About 585 BC, a notable man, an important personage, a patriarch, a saint, an essentially important someone, according to their various ways of putting it, came to Ulster, the most northern province of Ireland, accompanied by a princess. So a very important man coming with a prince. This is their stories. This is not from the Bible. But you know who they're talking about, right? We're talking about Jeremiah and the daughters of Zedekiah, the daughter of an eastern king. And that in a company with them was one Simon Brock, or Breck, Barak. Remember Barak, as it is differently spelled. And that this royal party brought with them many remarkable things. Among these was the harp, remember the harp of David, an ark, remember the ark, and the wonderful stone called Lia Fáil, remember Jacob's pillow, or the stone of destiny, of which we shall have much to say hereafter. This eastern princess was married to King Heremon, remember Eocoid Heremon. She married him, that's where we left off in the last video, right? On condition made by this notable patriarch that he should abandon his former religion and build a college for the prophets. This Heremon did, and the name of the school was Mur Olam, which is the name both in Hebrew and Irish for school of the prophets, okay? It's the same thing in Hebrew and Irish and Gaelic, and we're going to see a book, right, that's going to prove it's the same thing. The Gaelic and all this, Celt, what you want to call Celt, has Hebrew roots, so-called Hebrew. He also changed the name of his capital city, a lot there, sometimes spelled Katair, Crofton, to that of Tara. The name of this eastern princess is given as Tefi, all right, Queen Tefi. And it is well known fact that the royal arms of Ireland is the harp of David and has been for 2,500 years, okay? This is the history they don't tell you. Ezekiel in his riddle, when speaking of the coming of the female passenger who came to that land in the second vessel, whom he afterwards proves to be a princess, speaks of the furrows of her plantation. It is a truth, and to us a marvelous one, that the province of Ulster used to be called the plantation of Ulster, as anyone may know if they will take the trouble to consult Chambers' encyclopedia on the word Ulster. Further, the crown which was worn by the sovereigns of that hitherto unaccounted for kingdom in Ireland had 12 points. Who shall say that the king's daughter was not planted there, and that the first of the three of Ezekiel's prophetic overturns was not from Palestine to Erin, right? From America to Erin, from America, ancient Canaan, right? The true promised land.